Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Aage Nost. First, a couple of announcements. If you want to help with a donation for the documentary production, you can go to supportfkn.com or we have a PayPal link in the description. Anything is greatly appreciated. Any donation of $5 or more to supportfkn.com, you get access to Corey Hughes' secret JFK forum and tons of information that will be going into his upcoming book. Our website is forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. Forbidden Knowledge News is always available on Rockfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Our social media is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rockfin is where you get our premium content, as well as all the premium content from every creator on Rockfin for only $10 a month. Just go to rockfin.com/FKN+. That's ROKFIN.com/FKN+ to sign up now or click the link in the description. Today I want to welcome back to the show Aage Nost. He is an author, researcher, producer, filmmaker, and co-host on Broadcast Team Alpha. He's had years of experience in the paranormal, including hypnosis and mind development. Aage, welcome back. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing wonderful.
Man.
I don't know any other way to do it.
Well, that's the way to be. And welcome back. And thank you so much for coming back on short notice. This is great. I always enjoy our conversations. And you're doing some incredible things over at Masterminds. You and I were just discussing some of the incredible work you're doing with the powers of consciousness and intent. And we'll probably ask the same question you asked me when we started our conversation earlier. You asked if I believe if we can create something out of nothing. And of course, me knowing what I know, I said, well, yeah, of course. But maybe some in the audience may not believe so. So why don't we start off with some of the incredible things that you've been working on and help the audience understand how we can do just that?
Well, yeah, on that statement, create something out of nothing. We probably lost a few there, but hopefully they'll stick around because I'm going to prove otherwise, because we have the track record of it right now. And when I said earlier, create something out of nothing, I actually meant create something out of seemingly nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing is, I don't know if there anything that is nothing. Does nothing really exist? I'm not so sure, because everything in the universe is connected. There is something everywhere, and that is consciousness. That is the matrix. It's there. And we, with our mind, can tap into it and direct it to go places where we need it to go in order to create something, retrieve something, remember something, or anything that we want our mind to facilitate and do. So, science has been struggling since Newton, saying that there's no such thing as consciousness. It's all in the brain. Yeah, right. But now they're finding out different. Science is finally coming around to the fact that there is consciousness. Consciousness does exist, but it's not only local here or in the body. It is non-local. And that is what some people call the matrix, the universal consciousness or God.
Yeah, and our brain is kind of like you would say like an antenna that picks up this signal of consciousness, right?
Absolutely. That's what the brain is for. In a mind-created universe, which we are now, quantum mechanics has proven by repeatable scientific experiments that we live in a mind-created universe. So, what does the mind create? It creates thoughts, feelings, visual impressions, emotion. But does the mind create anything physical? We didn't think so until fairly recently. Because you mentioned the mastermind that we're doing, and let me, for the naysayers out there, this is one for you. Just I dedicate this one to you. we are doing some things that cannot be explained by Newtonian physics. Let me give you an example. About a month ago, there were all kinds of forest fires in Northern California. And a lady out there that lives in that area, she texted me and said, I'm afraid my house is going to burn. So I'm taking my animals and I'm going into town. That was up in Eureka, Northern California. And she's going to town, but it's probably safer there, she said. Can you do something about this on the mastermind? So she was already a member of the mastermind. And I told her, let's do that tomorrow when the mastermind session starts on Sunday. And
Maybe you could explain a little bit about what the mastermind sessions do.
Okay, let me back up a little bit and explain the mastermind. The definition of a mastermind is when two or more minds are united in harmony, they create a third mind, which has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. If 1,000 people get together and concentrate on one thing in vivid images, intention, and put love in it and use the spiritual language, now it's not only 1,000 people and thought anymore, it is the 1,000 times 1,000, which is the mind power of 1,000,000 minds, and that is powerful. So that's what we did. And what we did, we wrapped our mastermind around her house in Northern California. And we did our thing. And then we discussed a little after first and we got off. And 1 hour later, she called and she said, it's raining. And before we started, there were a few clouds up there, she said, but not that many. And as soon as we have been done with the mastermind, it thickened up, got darker, and it started howling rain. So what happened there is that we reached into the quantum, outside of physical existence. With our thought, we created it there in the mental and the, I would call it a spiritual arena. And then we pulled it back into the physical because we needed immediate help, not one that will just show up 3 weeks from now after her house was burned. So we concentrated on this happening now. And the language that you have to use when you speak with the universal mind is not one of words. It is one of emotion, feeling, intention, gratitude for already having it right now, even though not in the physical yet, but we have it. We have to immerse ourselves in it. And we fed it love. We loved the rain because we saw ourselves standing on the hill, looking towards the forest fires, and there were none of them because they were all washed out with the rain. We saw ourselves standing there, rain all over us. Our hair was wet, rain dripping down our face. Our clothes were all wet. My boot had filled up with water. And there we're standing there loving it because we knew this will, first of all, wipe out the fires and be good for the land. Mm-hmm. This is the spiritual language that gets done. This is what should be practiced in prayers. But the church doesn't teach you how to do it because half of them don't know how to do it. And the other half that do, they won't tell you because they lose power.
So, I think that this is something that quantum science is just starting to get a small grasp of when you look at things like observer effect, spooky action at a distance, these quantum type of experiments that have been done that show that we are indeed connected to everything and we can have an effect on objects that are at a distance and even at a very large distance and probably even change the properties of the object, right?
Absolutely. Quantum mechanics is now coming out with this, But education systems, they're a little slow at catching on. They're still teaching the old model that Newton came up with 300 years ago of, the atom. You got the nucleus, and then you got these little things spinning around it, electrons, and it isn't that way. It is a shimmering globule of energy that spikes out and touches everything. Even a billion miles away, you are connected to this field. And then we go back to the mind-created universe. And then I was reading a paper written by a scientist, a physicist, and he said that since it is a mind-created universe, most of our universe does not even exist because nobody is thinking about it. Nobody is interacting with it. Nobody is putting their binoculars on it and trying to see something. If it is not thought of, interacted with, or observed, it does not exist. So that kind of put a limitation on the Big Bang, because that's so far away that nobody's able to see that. Maybe it didn't even exist. Now we're trying to recreate. They're hanging on saying, oh yeah, there's got to be a Big Bang because there had to be a beginning. Well, yeah, there was a beginning, but not a bang.
Yeah. So let's get into the powers of the energy that we have in us and that we emit. I've firsthand witnessed the powers and the manifestation powers of positive energy and what it can bring, as well as the powers of negative energy and the negative impacts and outcomes that can bring as well. So we definitely have to always be careful of what we're putting out there and what we want, and the type of energy that we have behind it, because I think this will determine either positive or negative outcomes, right?
Well, that little comment you said in the middle of that we have to be careful what we put out there. We put out thoughts, we put out energy, because thoughts are energy, and energy does not disappear. It only changes form or stay the same. So when you put out a thought, it's a real thing that goes into the field and is recorded in the field as well as in your brain, and it will affect you forever. Whatever we allow to dwell in our mind the most is what we are going to have in our life. But boy, do we have to be careful. And I'm thinking back on some of the things that I've thought, and I'm not too happy.
Right. Yeah, and so, I mean, our thought forms can also take on energies and probably manifest in certain ways in our reality that we may not even notice at first, but it could have detrimental effects in our future.
Oh, absolutely. You betcha. Those subconscious mind programs that we create all the time, they solidify things that were lies maybe in the past. We were told lies, and now we're thinking about them, and that solidifies it. And the thing is that we can reprogram the subconscious mind. And this is one of the things we work with in the mastermind. And I'll tell you listeners out there, if you want to come and visit something and see something that is incredible, come and join us. And I'll give you an email because you can contact us. And I'll send you a link so you can come and check it out. That email is themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com. You may have to run the tape back and get this one so you could write it down.
Oh, I'll have it in the description for everybody so they can just look down there and click that. Yeah. That's good. And see, the thing is, the mind can create things. If it is a mind-created universe, your mind creates everything around you. Now, that's a hard one to swallow. So, with other words, my mind created this desk. How can that be?
It was here before I even came to the house. Well, that's a tough one, but maybe there's something to that. In fact, let me give you another example. And that is that I'm a hypnotist. And if I put you in a soft chair and talk to you for 10 minutes, or maybe about 5, I tell you that when you wake up from this hypnotic state, when I snap my finger and bring you back out, you will see an elephant standing next to you in the room. I snap my finger. If I did my job right, you would see that elephant. He's right there. And I don't care if you're on the 34th floor of an apartment building with a door much smaller than the elephant. He is in the room with you. So now you're looking at the elephant. You reach out and touch the snout on that elephant, and you can feel the rough skin. You can smell him. You can hear him breathing. That elephant is totally real for you. But there's a problem. I can't see the elephant because there's no elephant there. Mm-hmm. What happened to your real world? It went away, didn't it?
Yeah.
That is what the mind can create. When all I did was convince your subconscious mind that there's an elephant. And the reality we have around us here is the same type of thing, only on a much larger scale.
Yeah, and at the quantum level, everything we perceive as physical is just energy particles moving at a rapid enough pace to manifest into something. I believe that's what we have to say.
There you go. And it is based on intelligence. There's nothing random going on because there's an intelligence behind it. How do I know that? Well, there is this physicist. His name is, Dr. I'll think of it in a second. Mm-hmm. He says he spent his whole life studying the universe and quantum mechanics. And he says when we get deep in the equations explaining the fabric of space, we find computer language. Yeah. And it is so organized, it could not be put there by accident. We didn't put it there, but it is there. And it is based on an intelligence. An intelligence put it there. So now, if we have a computer language explaining the fabric of space, usually when you have computer language, that means there's a computer somewhere. So if there's a computer somewhere, what is that computer? Or more important, who's sitting at the computer?
That's a good question. I've wondered that very often. Yeah. No, well, let's talk about some of the implications of this, especially when it comes to our physical bodies, our health, and ability to heal. You know, if all this physical reality is just somewhat of an illusion, then so is the sickness and any disease or pain that would come along with it, right?
Yeah, it can have many effects. And when it comes to, just like hypnosis, it can be used for many things, but I think we should be a little careful when it comes to medical things, because let's say that you have a really bad pain in your stomach. Okay, so put somebody under, you take away the pain, but it doesn't take away the cause for the pain. You may have a real problem in your stomach. If there's no pain, you don't know it, and it can kill you. So you got to be really careful there. But on the other hand, you can use hypnosis to reach into the subconscious mind and create things that otherwise would be almost impossible. And there are people doing that. And my co-host on Broadcast Team Alpha, Nori Love, she is doing hypnotherapy, and she's good at it.
Right. And well, I've spoken to many people who use what they call energy healing for all sorts of problems and even past life traumas and energies that are stuck in people. So the powers of our consciousness even have the ability to heal some of the most terrible things that could be traumatizing us, right?
Absolutely. And see, when it comes to that part of it, it is almost like we bend the laws of physics. Because when, let's say that you can heal somebody, now you're wherever you are, and you got a friend on Facebook that says, I got this problem, maybe you could help me. You could go within, create a visual image of him or her, visualize them perfectly healthy, and send them the kind of energy that will help do that in France or Bulgaria. It doesn't matter. That should not happen according to what Newton said, but it does. So this is something now is just kind of budding and coming up. Epigenetics is starting to give an explanation to this, that our environment control our health. And that is not just what we eat, it is what we listen to, what we say, who we have around us that gives us influence in form of both input through what we hear, what we see, what we feel, and also the vibration of those people. I bet you have, I bet you know somebody that every time you get around them, you feel like, oh, I want to leave. I want to get out here. I can't stand that guy.
Yeah.
I bet everybody knows somebody like that. That's because of that person's vibration. They put out a vibration that clashes with yours. Energy vampires do that. Narcissists do that.
Yeah. I have witnessed this firsthand, and I know plenty of people that are quite draining whenever you go around them from their energy. I want to go back to thought forms for a minute and the powers that they can create. How far do you think a thought form can go as far as its manifestation in our reality? I'm talking about possibly causing paranormal activity, maybe manifesting as something we had in our mind as in a group collective as like an alien or a UFO or Bigfoot, or these things that we can't normally understand, but maybe has been in our consciousness for long enough. Maybe it's manifested from our own thoughts. What do you think about that?
That is, I'm perfectly open to that. And we have people, in fact, I think of two people right now that has been on our show that has talked about the fact that they expected this to happen. That was so far out of normal, but they expected it to happen, and it did. And again, with the mind-created universe, if we are really afraid of something to happen, and we are in a detailed description in our mind of what this fear could be, fear is a very strong creative vibration.
Yeah.
You could create someone that will be to your detriment in one way or the other. And you may not know that it's not a person. It could be an image of something that appears to be a person because it's all created up here.
Now
and then again, Montauk, remember the Montauk monster? They created that thing, and that monster they created came out of the quantum, and it scared the crap out of them.
It makes you wonder, they were doing things like that, trying to open portals and messing around in different types of realities and realms. Imagine, fast forward to now, the technology that we have that's always 50 to 100 years ahead, what they're doing with the experiments, say Skinwalker Ranch, all the military industrial stuff that's going on with those. It makes me wonder what they're tinkering with that stuff.
Yeah, they are totally in uncharted territory. They're doing things without knowing the extent of the reactions to it. And that's dangerous. And we come to see that over at CERN. There are times when the locals that live there, they see some strange things that should not exist. And a local newspaper over there wrote a small article about they have this one animal that kind of looks like a dog, but it's only like 3 times as big as a normal dog that is roaming the streets.
Wow.
They wonder where that one came from. It's not a dog, but it's something that looks kind of like one.
I also wonder if these quantum realms actually are where these thought forms and energies reside, if we do indeed create enough energy to manifest what we call an entity. Maybe they all do reside in these quantum realms, whether we created them or not. I do believe that we have intelligences and possible life forms that exist just beyond the spectrum of our vision at all times, surrounding us in these different types of dimensions.
Yeah. And these entities outside of the physical that is observing us, they observe what we think in form of images that they can understand. And they can, I don't know if they can actually hear the voice because there's no air out there, so nothing to carry the voice, but I think they can observe the mental images we create at the same time we create the verbal commands or verbal sentences. So they observe that and see what we are thinking, and then they take advantage of that and come in and communicate with us somehow. And I believe that is maybe kind of borderline what channelers do. Mm-hmm. They know you are open to it. So they, okay, here's a channel, I'm going to come through. Or if there's someone that you already have a contact with, then you have that contact that can come all the time. And a lot of people laugh at channelers. They say, yeah, sure, you read about 15 books and now you can talk on anything. I'm sure there are people out there like that, but channeling is a real thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And because what comes through does not come from their brain, because there are things in the channel sometimes that can be verified in another location, in an area which you had no knowledge of. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what we understand as magic is the manipulation of this energy that surrounds us all time, and that there are very probably powerful groups that understand how to manipulate this energy and magic, and have been doing it for a long time, and probably use it against humanity. And that is why we've seen ourselves in this. And we ourselves, I believe, if we could learn to understand this energy and use it, not necessarily against them, but for our own good, then they would probably be a little bit more hesitant to do the horrible things that they're doing to humanity right now.
Yeah, we don't really know what repercussions there is. Let's say that you do a horrible thing here. Then when you drop the body, you go somewhere else, consciousness leaves. I think it varies. As an astral traveler, I know that most of the entities you run into out there, they are entities with very limited spiritual knowledge or none. So once they drop the body and find out, holy moly, was I wrong? There is something after death. Okay, now what do I do? They have no clue. Mm. And then again, I know a guy that was a sniper for the U.S. Army over in Vietnam. He said he had many kills, but I think something like 18 or 19 or so. It was a pretty decent number. Yeah. Of the recorded kills. And he says, I killed them in cold blood, he said. And he expected fully when later on he, got religion, he knew he was going to go to hell. But then he had a near-death experience. And he had a wonderful experience. He went through a tunnel, ended up at the other end, and he saw some things, and there was feeling of love everywhere. And then he came back and he said, hell, no, you can do anything you want, he thought, and the hell doesn't exist. Because if anybody should go to hell, it probably would be him, because he believed it, because he did things to others. Mm-hmm. So I am not really sure what would happen on the other side. I think that depends on maybe the soul contract that you end up agreeing to before you come here. And there are some people, I have no personal experience on this, but there are some people say they have communicated with Adolf Hitler, and he's fine. He's not in hell. So you never know.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I think it is all really personal and subjective, especially when it comes to those experiences like near-death experiences. I've very rarely heard of someone having these hellish negative experiences and experiencing demons and being torn apart and tortured and all this horrible stuff. Most of the NDEs that I've had guests on to talk about are very transformative, beautiful experiences, and I think that it's our own consciousness and guilt which might create these negative experiences for people.
Yep, absolutely. And there are a few near-death experiences with really bad experiences on the other side. But it's extremely few, less than 1%, or you hardly ever run into them. So I think that is, like you said, I think that is because our own guilt, shame, and total submission to the belief that when you do these things, you're going downstairs in the basement and you're going to be next to the furnace down there.
Right. I was having a conversation with a couple of guests this week. I want to get your thoughts on this. If we are indeed in some sort of holographic simulated reality and the purpose of it is for spiritual growth or consciousness evolution, it makes me wonder if outside of the simulation, if it is just us and what we perceive as angels or entities or paranormal experiences is maybe us interacting with ourselves to try and push along our spiritual experience a bit, because everybody's paranormal experiences are usually extremely personal, although some of them may have similarities. All the experiences are something that person is very unique and to that person's life or experiences or even the entities that they come into contact with. So it makes me wonder how personal these experiences are, and if indeed it is just us interacting with ourselves on a different spiritual level.
Yeah, that gets a little complicated. You got to remember the definition of angel. The word angel comes from the old Sumerian language, angel, which means messenger. So angels, even according to the Bible, angels do not have wings. That's the cherubs. Cherubs have wings, but the angels don't. And they are interdimensional or cross-dimensional entities that have the capability of manifesting themselves here for usually just your purpose. Maybe for guidance, or maybe nudge you to, hey, you're about to do something that is really stupid. Think this one over, would you? Well, I've had a few of those. And we know they're there because we have the testimonies, we have the pictures, the videos of them. They are out there. You can see those things. And if only half of them have been CGI'd, the other half is pretty convincing. So they are there. And sometimes if you get into old writings, you run into a concept called the shining ones.
Oh, yeah.
Those are light beings that manifest themselves in the physical to communicate with someone. And I know they exist because I had an experience like that.
Oh.
That was a year after I came to the United States. I went to flight school, and that Christmas I went back to Europe just to celebrate Christmas. And I went back to the farm that we had sold, and I walked into the forest just to reminisce, I suppose. And in the forest, there's two grave mounds, one smaller and one bigger one. That's probably about, one of them is maybe 20 feet tall. There's a rock up there. And I crawled up on this grave mound, the Viking grave mound, and I sat down on the rock. And I sat there and meditated a little bit. And then suddenly I started hearing like water running, like somebody turn up the faucet. And I remember thinking, water here? So I opened my eyes up, and there in front of me, on the mound, on the edge of it, there was this man standing there. He was about 7 foot tall. He had a robe on, and he was lit up like a light bulb. And it scared the crap out of me. And I just, in one split second, I was down from that mound and I was running away. And I heard the voice in my head saying, "Where are you going?" So I thought about that and get me, probably running wouldn't do it. So I walked back and walked up there on the mound again, and we had a conversation. So I know these entities exist. It's not just in your mind, because I had no idea. I expected nothing like that. It just showed up.
Would you be able to tell us a little bit about the conversation you had with this being?
Yeah, some of it is probably lost in the pages of time, but there were some things that he told me to do. Some of those things I have been able to do, and some of the things I have not. One of them was find a way to communicate with the whole world. And amazingly, I'm doing that right now, you and me,
Yeah.
if they just would find us. So that's one of them. And he also told me about my journey in the United States. It was a very hard one, because I wasn't totally done in flight school yet. And it was difficult. Language barriers and new things to learn. And the stuff I was learning was really complicated, coming from the farm. So it was difficult. And he told me, do not, under any circumstance, give up, because you will succeed. And he also told me that he would be there when I needed him from there on. And he has. I have communicated with him quite a few times since. There are times when I needed some input and I went to look for him and I can't find him. But after a while, he shows up and he finds me. So we have a communication. And by the way, that is why I'm not worried about September 24.
Right. Now, would you consider this being one of your spirit guides?
No, well, in a roundabout way, maybe. But he was, he wore the clothing or the garment of an archangel, because he had the gold around the collar on the gold, and instead of my red, he had gold hair. And he was, well, he was dressed to the level of an archangel. And I asked him about that one time, and he says, we do not use those terms. He says, that is what you do.
Right.
And I asked him what his name was, and he says, we do not use names. When we want to communicate with someone, he says, we see their image, and that is their call to contact.
Oh, that's so
but
interesting.
he also said, if you absolutely need a name, then he gave me one.
Wow, that's so interesting. I had an experience through meditation and made contact with what I just have an understanding myself as my spirit guide, and it told me the same thing. We don't really have a name. There's nothing you could say. You can call me really whatever you want, but there's no way that you would be able to pronounce it, and it's beyond your understanding. So that's it pretty incredible. Now I do want to go back to the powers of manifestation and healing and what we can create with our own intentions. Maybe you could give us some examples, either things that you've done with masterminds or some of the most profound things, examples that you've heard of, how we can use this.
Everybody can do this. Everybody can communicate with a universal mind. They can put their requests in there, and I would suggest also, don't become a beggar. In other words, don't do it every hour of the day. Just it's kind of like when you buy something on the internet. You go to their website. Okay, but you go to their website, pick out what you want. You go to the order other side, and then you give them your credit card. You buy it. You don't call back the next day and said, did it work? Will I actually get this one? Yeah. No, it is done. So when you put something in there with total confidence, no, it is done. And now there is a way to solidify that without being a beggar, and that is the next day or whenever, see yourself having it already. If it's a car you want, see yourself driving it. If it's a new home, see yourself walking around in it and feeling wonderful. Mental images, colorful mental images with love, gratitude for already having it. So you know it has happened, but you don't go back and say, I sure hope you can do this. No, it is done, and no, you have it.
Right on. Well, maybe we could get some examples to help people understand what you can use these energies for. I mean, I know they can be used for basically anything that you desire in your life, but it has to be something that has a positive intention and no negative connotations, right? It can be negative, but you'll probably have a negative outcome, and it'll have consequences.
That is correct. It's see, the universe have balance. When you do something for somebody, you put actually a deposit into a spiritual bank account in your credit. When you do something to somebody without their knowledge, for their detriment, you're withdrawing. And some people, that the account is empty, but we can replenish by thought. You ask for an example. Let's see, what do you think people, let's run through one example from the beginning to the end. What would you think something that everybody listening right now would want?
Of course, money.
Okay. Money is a dead issue outside of the physical. It's never used. But what money can buy, that has value outside of the physical. So we have to look at a tangible thing that will be created by that money. In order for us to get that tangible thing, on the way there, money had to be created, and we don't care how it is created as long as we get that thing what we want. That makes sense?
It does. So like a dream house.
Dream house? Okay, let's do the dream house. First, you should go to auctions.com, find a house that you want. And they're usually about half price there because they're being auctioned off, but somebody get foreclosed and stuff. And at least it's a place to say, or you can talk to a realtor and just find a house that you want. But look through at least 20 of them so you can find one that you like, absolute like best. And then save it. Put it on your screensaver, right on your laptop. Have it there in front of you all the time to impact your subconscious mind. Every time you sit down at the computer, look at it and say, that is my house. And then in your meditation, see yourself walking through the house, going in the different rooms, see furnitures that you like, see what you have on the counter in the kitchen, see the big screen TV on the wall in one of the living rooms, maybe you have two, and the TV is so big that it covers basically half the wall. Put everything that you want into that thing in detail. Spend a little time on that. Create it in your mind. And now, every time you go into meditation, visualize this for yourself. And tell yourself, this is my home. This is my home.
Would you add that the more details that you can manifest into these thoughts, that the better the outcome would be?
My impression is that it is so. Others say otherwise, but I prefer to put more detail into it. Mm-hmm. So at least I have manifested many things in the past using this method. It has worked for me. So when you are doing that in your meditation, also take this ball of mental image that you have created with a house in it, place it in the future at a time-coded event. Don't use the calendar. Calendars are man-made and worthless to the universal mind. But a Christmas party, that'll work. Birthday party, or a celebration among friends, to when you have, let's say, 10 friends standing around in the living room and you're all raising your champagne and toasting to your new home. A time-coded event will be your finish date. When you do that, do it every day. Keep doing it, and then feel the gratitude for already having it. Live in the future. And do this as many times as you can during the day. You can take 30 seconds sometime. Sitting in a bathroom stall at the airport, take 30 seconds and see yourself walking into your new home, and then you leave. Right. The more you enforce the mental image on the mind, remember, that creates everything, that house or one very similar will show up.
Do you think this energy would be multiplied by actually using intent with someone maybe that you love, or someone that you're very close to, and doing these things mutually and having these mutual rituals? I understand that, in some ways that's how some forms of sex magic work. If you want to manifest a certain outcome, you would make love with your partner and have these thoughts going, and boom, it'd be a little bit more powerful way of having this manifested. Is that the way you understand it?
That could very well be. I'm not so sure about the sex magic. I'm a single guy.
Right on, yeah.
But on the other hand, that's what the mastermind that we're doing is all about. We multiply the effect of everybody in the session, mm-hmm. and pointing it towards a certain direction. And when we do that, we magnify it, multiply it by itself. And we go into detail about it. We go to the end result. We don't care how we get there, because everything has to fall into place for that end result to be in existence. So that works. It really works well. We have some phenomenal stories on the mastermind. So,
now, would you say that some of the biggest things that hinder a good outcome would be doubting the outcome, or fearing, yes. or not believing in yourself?
Yeah, that's calling calling the company back and say, will I actually get this one?
Yeah.
No, if you doubt it, it may not stop it. If long as you get over your doubt later, it may be just a roadblock at the time, but doubt and fear, a lot of times, if you ask for something that is so big and so successful that it scares the daylight out of you, you may be a little scared of it because
Mm.
if I suddenly was put in that position, then what do I do? You could have fear with success, and get rid of fear. That's a bad vibration.
It's probably not
Doubt.
so good if you get angry that maybe the outcome didn't happen fast enough or it's not happening the way
Oh
that
yeah,
you thought it was, and anger could probably have about a bad outcome.
absolutely. Yep, that's a bad vibration to a very low vibration of the mind. So speaking with the universal mind is not that difficult as long as you know the language. It's not English or Bulgarian or Swedish.
Yeah. Now, would you
It's
say
one
that
of
one of the easiest ways to start this connection with the universe is meditation?
absolutely. The meditation is the gate to higher consciousness. For physicists out there, they meditate in their own way. A theoretical physicist, you've seen the blackboard, that is the biggest, the whole wall. And you got equations all over it. And they sit there for hours and stare at one section of that equation. And they don't see numbers and letters anymore. They see concepts flowing in and out of that equation. And from there, new ideas come in to modify that equation. So we can do the same thing. We see something and we feel, and the universe start talking to us in this language of knowledge that comes through from the universal mind, comes in through the superconscious mind, which is basically just a connection device to the universal mind, between the universal mind and the subconscious mind. And it comes from there to the subconscious mind. And if your mind is not going 400 miles an hour, it will be able to bring it up to conscious understanding, where you can get a hunch, say, oh, that would be a good thing to do. If you don't catch it, it'll fleet right through your mind and you lose it. That's why I get my best ideas in the shower.
Yeah. Right on.
Shower, I don't know, there's something about the shower. It may be that you got water flowing all over you and it grounds you to the earth, or I don't know, there's something about that. A lot of people get good ideas in the shower and then they forget them when they get out.
Now, do you think that what we're experiencing now as a collective, all the turmoil, all the fear, the seemingly horrible agendas that are unfolding before our eyes, do you think that we are actually having an effect with our awakening process, with the amount of people that aren't participating with the nonsense, that are actually having a positive outlook, that are building their own systems, building their own communities, and not going along with these poisonous mainstream agendas anymore? Do you think that this collective energy, it could have an effect to where it could shift the timeline of our future to something better?
I absolutely think so, because I think right now there is more sound thinking minds than there are idiots.
Yeah.
I'm
I agree.
sorry, that was kind of a half joke, but borderline. In order to believe some of the stuff that the government tells you, you really had to be pretty close to being an idiot, because it is an IQ of 50,
Right, I agree. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think,
It gives me hope that we are indeed the critical thinkers, and the free thinkers might be the majority here.
yeah, I think it already is. And that's why I think we are going to succeed in this World War III, which we are deeply into.
Well, we have these desired outcomes that we can see. It's pretty obvious the direction they want us to go. The transhuman, plugged in, integrated with biology and machinery, this technocratic age of social credit and complete control over humanity, and probably some way of siphoning humanity's energy even further through technology. That's the desired outcome that we can see that they want us to go. But first of all, I don't see people are even close to being ready for these kinds of concepts, and I see more people than I'd ever thought pushing against it and not participating with it. And that's what gives me the most hope right now is I don't think we're going to see that desired future because people don't want that. People want a more natural, real life and not this half man, half machine technocratic slave state.
Yeah, and I think you got it, because the good truth will eventually surface. And when it does, it wipes out the lies. Because truth is verifiable, lies are not. So even for the eggheads out there, when they start looking at things and it's verified to them, they cannot discard it anymore. And we are there now. There are probably millions of people waking up every day now globally. To the point, they're waking up to the point that, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And that's the first question that you can ask yourself in order to ask the second one. Where do I start looking? And then they start verifying things for themselves, start looking into things, start searching contrarian ideas come to surface. They're asking themselves, why is everybody being knocked off of Facebook and YouTube? And it's illegal, we know that, but they get away with it. Why does all this happen? And then they start looking at these people that do get knocked off and they find the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm encouraged about the possible direction that we're headed, especially now that people are seeing through things like the medical and pharmaceutical industries. And that's a big step because I think once people can start actually getting healthy, and this is the way it worked for me, I wasn't able to really start my spiritual awakening until I was in a better state of physical health. And that triggered something in me to have a desire to seek more spirituality, and then I did. And I think that that's the case with a lot of people is if you're not healthy, if your body is full of crap and you can't function normally in a regular day because of that, you're not going to be seeking anything spiritual. So I think that might be a huge part of furthering this awakening that we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to the mastermind, it is something that everybody can do because every family should have a family meeting at least once a week. That family meeting could very well be a mastermind session between all the people in the family, because most families, they want the same thing. So they can concentrate on the same thing, they can visualize it, and they can intend it, they can feel emotion in it, they can just create it in our mind, send it out there into the universal mind, and expect it to come back. And I don't care if there's only two people in the family. Two people, you still have a mastermind. And if you're only one person in the family, you can still have a mastermind. How can we do that? Mastermind is usually between more people, but you can have that. The people that you include in your mastermind don't have to be there in your presence. You can think of somebody, visualizing that person sitting in a chair next to you. Put a third person there. We have done masterminds in the Mastermind Connection with people that has been dead 200 years. We bring their consciousness in, stick them in a chair around a round table, and we ask a question, and then we listen to what comes from each one, And they may come through in some of the groups that we are. Somebody say, oh, it feels like Abraham Lincoln may have said something like this to that question, and then they speak. And you'd be amazed what come through. It almost feels like he was there.
Wow.
The amazing thing is that Abraham Lincoln is always late. And then I find out he always was late to his meetings.
Oh, wow. Hey, that could give us a huge advantage if we can tap into more of that energy.
Yep.
You know, have it an army of individuals that have passed away on our side. Oh, Aage, this was fantastic. Before you head out, let people know again how they can find out more about masterminds and if they want to get involved.
Well, if you want to get a hold of me, go to broadcastteamalpha.com. broadcastteamalpha.com. That is where Nori Love and myself, we have this radio show we do weekly on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock in the evening East Coast time and 5 o'clock in the afternoon evening Pacific time. And we interview a lot of interesting people. And that gave me an idea. You should be a guest sometime.
Oh, I'd love to, anytime.
Yeah, you got some of the people you talk to. You know everything.
Oh no,
anyway,
I attribute that to my guests. I just absorbed their knowledge.
There you go. And also, if you want to be part of the mastermind group with us, or come and check it out, see what it feels like, what it does, what it do. Send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And otherwise, of course, that's what I get for not muting the phone.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. Just you Google my name, and then, you'll probably know more about me than I do. So, but either way, broadcastteamalpha.com. That will be great.
Perfect. Aage, this was fantastic. And of course, we'll have you back on sometime in the future. We'll go even deeper.
Let's do that. And there's one thing that I'm going to do something on here shortly, and that is on time travel. Maybe we could do a show on that.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to, for sure.
I think I'm probably the only one that I know of, except for one guy over in Sweden that has pictures to prove time travel.
Huh. Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to have to touch on that, so we'll have you back on soon, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Aage, and until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then.